The house was quiet, a rare blessing on a Saturday afternoon. With everyone out, I had settled onto the sofa wrapped in a blanket, letting myself sink into a book I'd been putting off for weeks. It felt peaceful, unusually so, until a sudden, muffled thump echoed from upstairs. I froze, listening. Another thump. Then a soft, strained sound, almost like someone trying to hold in a sob. I frowned. I was sure the boy wasn't home. He'd said he'd be at a friend's all day. Maybe he came back early. Or maybe something fell. But something in the noise, something about the rhythm of it, stirred a knot of unease inside me. I set my book down and headed up the stairs. His door was slightly ajar, strange because he was always private. Too private sometimes. As I approached, the sounds grew clearer, the creak of bed springs shifting under weight. A quiet gasp, a choked breath. Not playful, not careless. Distressed. My fingers hovered over the doorknob as doubt crept in. Maybe I should turn around. Maybe it was nothing. But another sharp breath, a sound that carried pain, pushed me forward. I eased the door open just an inch. What I saw jolted me. He was on the edge of his bed, hunched over, shirt clinging to his back with sweat. His hands were trembling, gripping the blanket so tightly his knuckles were white. His entire body was tense, as though bracing against some invisible force. His breathing was ragged, not from exertion, but fear, real fear. My heart clenched. This wasn't the shy teenager who had moved in months ago. This was someone unraveling. I stepped back quickly, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. 100 questions flooded my mind. Was he hurt? Was he sick? Was someone here earlier? But as I turned to leave, my foot caught on the hallway rug. I stumbled, letting out a small yelp that echoed far too loudly in the quiet house. The noises in the room stopped instantly. Silence. Then, Mom? His voice was hoarse, shaky, raw. Not embarrassed, frightened. I felt my pulse spike. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I took a breath and pushed his door open fully. He sat upright, clutching the blanket to his chest, eyes wide and glossy. He looked exposed, not physically, but emotionally, as if I had caught him in a moment he desperately wanted to hide. I didn't know you were home, he whispered. I heard a noise, I said gently, stepping inside, careful not to startle him. Are you okay? You sounded upset. He stared at the wall instead of me. His chest rose and fell too quickly, like he was fighting off another surge of panic. I'm fine, he murmured. Though everything about him said otherwise, I moved slowly to the edge of the bed and sat, keeping space between us. You don't have to tell me anything, I said softly. But you're shaking. Something happened. His fingers tightened on the blanket. A tremor ran through his shoulders. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, barely audible, you won't tell him. Right, there it was. The secret, the fear. The weight he'd been carrying alone. Never, I said without hesitation. This stays between us, always. His breath escaped in a trembling sigh. Relief mixed with something else, something heavier. The vulnerability in his eyes was almost painful to see. Thank you, he whispered. The word mom slipped out again, quieter, more genuine this time, and for the first time since he moved in. It felt like he meant it. He looked like he truly meant it. In that moment, I reached out without thinking and placed my hand gently on his arm, just above the blanket draped over him. His skin was warm beneath my fingertips, warmer than I expected, almost feverish, and the unexpectedness of it made me pause. He didn't pull away. Instead, he glanced at my hand, then slowly lifted his gaze to my face, a silent question flickering in his eyes. My touch had been meant as reassurance, nothing more. But there was something else beneath the surface, a tension, a quiet electricity I couldn't explain. It's nothing to be ashamed of, I said softly, my voice dropping into a whisper. My thumb reflexively brushed his arm and he shivered. Whether from fear, cold, or something he couldn't voice, I didn't know. A faint heat rose across my own cheeks as I realized how long I'd been touching him. Yet neither of us moved away. He began, then stopped, words tangled in his throat. His eyes dropped back to the blanket, gripping the edge as if it were the only anchor he had left. My chest tightened for him. He was at that age where emotions hit like storms, unpredictable and overwhelming. Confusion clung to him like a shadow. I know, I murmured. It can feel like too much. All at once, I let my hand slide from his arm, resting near the edge of the blanket. A small gesture, but meaningful. The air between us shifted. He finally looked up again, and this time something deeper, lived in his eyes. How do people deal with it? He asked, gesturing vaguely. It wasn't embarrassment I heard, it was fear. A fear of something he couldn't understand, something he didn't want to name. The question chilled me. This wasn't about curiosity. It was about something he had seen, or something that had happened to him. A strange feeling unfurled in my chest, part instinct, part protectiveness, part dread. Sometimes, I said gently, you start by understanding what scares you, what feels wrong. What doesn't make sense? He held my gaze, searching it. As if hoping I already knew the answer he couldn't form. The silence stretched. Heavy and trembling, he kept glancing at the blanket, then at me, then back again. Something weighed on him. Something hidden. Something he was terrified to reveal. It's about figuring out what your body is trying to tell you, I said quietly. Even when your mind isn't ready yet. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. I noticed the pulse trembling at the side of his neck, fast, uneven. Panic fast. I reached slowly toward the edge of the blanket, not to intrude, but to offer him a choice. My eyes met his, asking silently, do you want to show me? Do you trust me? He didn't nod. He didn't speak, but he didn't stop me. With a careful breath, I lifted the blanket just enough to see what he'd been hiding, and when I saw it, I felt my breath catch, not out of shock, but out of fear for him. Dark, bruised discoloration trailed along his side, swollen, painful looking. Wrong. Not an accident, not something he could have done to himself, something someone else had done. He flushed red, but it wasn't embarrassment. It was relief that someone finally saw the truth he had been carrying alone. You're okay, I whispered, steadying my voice. You're safe now. His shoulders shook slightly as he exhaled, the tension in his grip loosening. He reached out, his fingers trembling as they brushed my sleeve. Not seeking anything inappropriate, just seeking someone who would listen, someone who would stay. I turned toward him fully, ready to hear everything. Because now I understood, what he was hiding was not shame, but a secret that could change everything. And then, unexpectedly, his fingers brushed lightly against my lips. It was such a small touch, brief, hesitant, but it carried the weight of something unspoken. Not desire, not confusion. But fear, a wordless plea for silence. I froze, his eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. Something flickered in them, panic, warning, desperation. I could almost feel the tremor running through his hand. A moment later, his entire body shuddered, and a strangled cry slipped from his throat. Not pain. Not pleasure, terror. Before I could ask what was wrong, he collapsed back against the pillow, breath ragged, chest heaving as if he'd been holding something inside for far too long. I pulled my hand back slowly, watching him fight for control. Relief washed over his features, but it wasn't the relief of release. It was the relief of finally not hiding. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. His breathing steadied. My own heart found its rhythm again. A dozen questions burned at the back of my mind, but none of them felt safe to ask out loud. When he finally opened his eyes, vulnerability swam in them, along with something else, something fragile and pleading. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing him, for noticing, for not looking away. I reached out, brushing his hair back from his forehead. You're welcome, I murmured. The words felt small compared to the storm swirling inside him. It felt right to finally tell someone, he said, voice cracking, his hand lifted, covering mine on his forehead. This time, he didn't hesitate. His thumb moved slowly across my knuckles, grounding himself, not seeking anything more. You don't have to say anything, I told him softly. Just know I'm here. Whatever this is, whatever you're going through, you're not alone. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air. He wasn't asking for intimacy. He was asking for protection. For understanding. For safety. He swallowed hard, then whispered, Do you think it will happen again? A chill slid through me. The bruises, the panic. The secrecy. He wasn't hiding shame. He was hiding danger. I leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to his forehead, not romantic, but protective, instinctive. Maybe, I whispered. But if it does, you tell me first. This stays between us, our secret, until we figure out what's really happening. He nodded quickly, gripping my hand like a lifeline. Our secret, he repeated, a vow, a warning, a plea. I stayed with him for a long while, the room thick with the kind of quiet that feels alive. The house no longer felt peaceful. It felt watchful, as though something unseen was listening beneath the floorboards. When I finally left his room, the air in the hallway felt colder, heavier. The line had been crossed, not into something forbidden, but into something dangerous. In the days that followed, tension threaded every moment between us. Not desire, dread, a shared understanding, a shared fear. Our glances became coded messages. Our every interaction, a step deeper into the unknown. And each time our hands brushed, each time his eyes met mine, I felt it. Something else was in the house with us. Something that didn't want its secret revealed. If this story stays with you, know this, the next chapter is darker. Stranger. And it begins on Evelyn's secret stories, where the truth finally starts to unravel.